Hello everybody, this is Brett Lonsdale from Lightning Tools, and first of all, welcome to my session on SharePoint Business Connectivity Services. First of all, I'm going to be taking you through business connectivity services and what you get out of the box with SharePoint 2013. If you use SharePoint 2010 or Office 365, please don't be put off, because a lot of what you're going to be learning today also applies directly to those products as well. So I'm just going to be using SharePoint 2013 within my demonstrations. So before we get started, just a little bit about myself and the company. Business connectivity services is something that I've been quite passionate about for a number of years. I say passionate, obviously I'm a SharePoint geek, so passion only goes so far. I'm more passionate about my dog and my children, obviously, but yeah, there is a bit of a passion for business connectivity services as well. I think it's a very powerful part of SharePoint when it comes to connecting to your external data. So going back a few years, back to 2007, one of the things I did with my business partner at the time was write a book on the developer's guide to Business Data Catalog, which is what SharePoint was known as back. The Business Connectivity Services was known back then in SharePoint 2007, and in 2010, along with my current colleague Penny and Phil Duffy, we authored a book as well on Business Connectivity Services for SharePoint 2010. We haven't yet got around to doing a 2013 one. We may skip that and jump straight to Office 365. But that's one of the things I did do recently. Was there's a Pocket Admin Companion coming out soon for Office 365, and I wrote the Business Connectivity Services chapter for that book as well. So as far as this meeting is concerned, this webinar, what we're going to do is have a introduction to business connectivity services. I'm sure there's probably a mixture of people on the call. Some of you may have already been using business connectivity services in the past. Some may be experts in it, and others may be complete beginners. So what we're going to do is just have a high-level view of what business connectivity services is, what it provides the end user, and that will include the external list, which we're going to be taking a look at. Also, we're going to have a look at the web parts that come with SharePoint for connecting to business connectivity or external data sources, and then we'll have a look at the business data column as well, something that you can use in your SharePoint lists and libraries in order to look up external data as metadata. We'll cover a little bit about the Office client as well, and also the search and how that can bring back results from your external data sources. And of course, we're also going to take a look at Lightning Tools and where we fit in with business connectivity services as well. It is partly where our company is modeled on. We've always provided connectivity tools for business connectivity services. We also have a data viewer web part and also data viewer app for SharePoint Online that allows you to style the data that you're going to be connecting to. If you wanted to build in conditional formatting and aggregate functions and things like that, that's what we can do with the data viewer. And then we're also going to have a look at the chart web part that we offer as well. Which again doesn't just work with business connectivity services, but you can connect it to a business connectivity services external content type and have it build charts on your external data very easily. So that's the outline of today. It should take around about an hour, and that'll be a reasonably fast-paced session. If there is parts that you miss or you want to hear again, the session will be recorded and it's going to be posted up onto our site as soon as I get a chance to do so, which will likely be this evening or first thing tomorrow morning. So the place where you will find that is on lightningtools.com, and under the community menu item you'll find webcasts. There's some previous webcasts that we've done, and you'll also find this one there as well. So first of all, let's just have a look at what we're trying to achieve with connecting to our external data. Hopefully that's why everybody's on the call. So if you've got SharePoint, if you've invested in SharePoint or you're looking to invest in SharePoint, then one of the things you can do, as well as use it for document management and collaboration amongst your team players is you can use it as a central hub for your external data. So one of the things we do in most organizations is obviously we choose the right product or the right solution to run a business process. So that might be a solution that we choose for our accounts department, a solution that we choose for our sales department, and maybe a solution that we choose for our manufacturing department. They could all be very specific to that line of business application, but what we want to do is perhaps provide a portal or a way of looking at that data and providing some form of business intelligence, perhaps being able to also write back to that data source as well, or using the data source as a lookup when we're creating our SharePoint list items and SharePoint documents. So take your average user of SharePoint. They may not need to know how to actually use the SAP interface or how to use Microsoft Dynamics CRM or even Salesforce.com, whatever it might be. So what you can do is provide them with a view of that external data via SharePoint, and again, that's what today is all about. So a quick high-level view of what business connectivity services is. What we basically have, as I just mentioned, starting on this diagram from the bottom up, we've got external data inside our organizations, external to SharePoint. So it might be an SQL database, it could be an Oracle database, it could be OData, or data that is published via OData anyway, and that's extremely useful with inside a SharePoint hybrid environment. In order to connect to those external data sources, we have some built-in connectors, so OData, SQL, WCF, and .NET assemblies. If you don't see the external data source that you want to connect to, don't be put off, because I'm going to show you how we can connect to almost any external data source using business connectivity services. So that's what it does. It provides us with connectors to the external data and then allows us to bring it into SharePoint. The whole thing that makes that work is the business data connectivity runtime, and we basically model the data that we're going to be connecting to using something called an external content type. So the external content type is basically describing the data that we're going to connect to. So it has some strongly typed properties. If you imagine we're connecting to maybe a customers table, what we're going to have is the company name, the contact name, the address, the city, the county, the zip, and so on. And these are all going to be strongly typed names, so they'll be system string or date time and so on, that are defined inside the external content type. And then we're going to have some methods that allow us to actually go and get that data. So there's a finder method, a specific finder, and then a creator, updater, and deleter that allow us to write back. And all of that gets encapsulated inside this external content type. And once that's built, we can use the data throughout SharePoint and also Office. And in SharePoint, you'll find those things that we mentioned a little bit earlier on. We've got the web parts that allow us to view the data. We have search, so we can look up, say, a customer inside the search site and bring back data from our external system inside the search results. We can look up using the external data column. We can build custom solutions using the BCS object model, and also we can pull in user profile information as well from the external data source. So all of this is what Business Connectivity Services provides. From the Office client, we can also interact with the data via Outlook, via Word, via Excel, also InfoPath and so on, and get at the data through those applications as well. And all of that is going through the Business Connectivity Services service, if you like, the Business Data Connectivity Runtime. So we'll have a look shortly about how to create this external content type, because it's not as difficult as it might sound. You've got multiple ways of creating it. You can create connections to Microsoft SQL using SharePoint Designer. In order to connect to OData, you can use Visual Studio, or using our product, the BCS metaman tool, you can pretty much connect to most data sources via ODBC, via WCF, via OData, or you can connect directly to things like SQL, Oracle, Salesforce.com, and so on. So we'll be having a look at how that tool works. We also resell a product called the Theobald ERP Connect tool for SAP. So if anybody's using an SAP environment, you could also make use of business connectivity services. So business connectivity the business connectivity services suite that we offer, all these products are available individually, includes the BCS metaman tool, which we'll have a look at. That allows us to create the external content type simply by dragging and dropping the tables that we want to connect to, building joins between them and so on, and that allows us to write directly that external content type to SharePoint. And then we also have the data viewer, so we can style the data, we can do conditional formatting and so on, and the charts. So that makes up our BCS suite, which we'll be having a look at towards the end of the session. Okay, so yeah, we'll have a look at metaman, how it can connect to the data, and so on very, very shortly. So first of all, what I'd like to introduce you to is the external list. And the external list looks and behaves just like any standard SharePoint list. So if you've already built yourself some contact lists or some task lists, announcement lists, and so on inside of SharePoint, you'll be familiar with the ability to create views. You can obviously create items, edit items, delete items, and so on. We get to do the same thing with the external list, but that data is external. It's coming through from our external data sources, and this is not an import of the data, it's a link to the data, and that is key here. That provides us with great performance. It also means that we don't have any record locking issues, and we're not overinflating the database. There's people that like to import data into an external list, and all you're doing there is inflating the content DB, and you're having to synchronize that data, and that leads to like I say, all sorts of record locking issues. So this is a link to the data, allows you to build the views and write back to the data sources and so on if you want to. So let's have a look at it. What we're going to do first of all, we've got a solution here that we'll be referring back to every now and again to look at the charts, to look at the data viewer and some of the different lists here. But let's go and create one. So we've got a completely empty team site, and because of that, just a word of warning that I am doing a demo and I'm using a virtual machine. And when you do that, you sometimes get the demo gods. So if that happens, I apologize ahead of time. Hopefully it won't. So what we're going to do is create an external list. So this is the external list here. We're just basically going to select that external list, and you'll notice here under the external content type that we're able to look up from the existing external content types that we have available to us. So there's a number of different ones coming from the Northwind database, which is in SQL. I've also got some Salesforce and SAP external content types that I can connect to. So we provide the hard work as developers for users to be able to create the external content type, but the user can simply come in, select the data that they want. So here they want to select the suppliers, and they can name the list whatever they want. So we'll call it suppliers, and then we'll hit create. So if they want to make the suppliers data available to them inside their team site or for their teams, then they can create that external list. And here it is. So we can go into it, and there's the data. So so we've got a view, we've got a suppliers read list, and notice that we also have the ability to view the item, we can edit the item, we can delete the item, and so on. And that's optional. If you just want to make this read only, you can do that. That's no problem at all. So if I hit the edit item there, notice that launches the edit item box, and we can just simply write straight back to the data source there and save our changes. Okay, so that's the external list. If we go to the list ribbon, you'll notice we can create views. We can also export to Excel and bits and pieces like that. There are some things you can't do because the data is external. Those things are things like the quick edit lists that you can the quick edit views that you can create on most lists. You can't do that. You don't have the RSS feeds. You can't create additional columns and so on. So these are just a few of the things that you cannot do, but most users will that will go unnoticed. And the reason why you can't do them is because the data is external. It's being linked to rather than being stored within inside SharePoint. Okay. Notice you can also create custom actions as well. So there's a custom action here called Google. So if somebody wanted to Google a customer, they can just hit the drop down, click onto Google, and that will Google that customer. So there's the Grandma Kelly's homestead, and that's being Googled right now. and we'll get to see the results. Okay, so that can be any kind of URL whatsoever. If you wanted to maybe click onto that drop down and choose email customer or something like that, you can do that as well and pass through the email address. So we'll be having a look at how you can achieve that very, very shortly. So that's the external list. We've also got a number of different web parts as well, and the web parts are read-only. They're ideal for building some business data dashboards, and they work with one-to-many joins. And that we're going to have a look at right now, but we'll build some joins in BCS Metaman towards the end of the webinar, and you'll see how you can create the associations in order to make these joins work. But basically, we can insert a number of different web parts. If we go to Insert Web Part here on the ribbon, under Business Data, you'll see a number of different business data web parts, and there's one here called the Business Data List. That's what we're going to add onto our page. And once again, we can open up the tool pane. We can choose the type, which is the external content type. So there's the suppliers again. So if we simply select that, you can choose the view, and I'll show you how you can build multiple views using BCS Metaman a little bit later on. And basically we hit apply, and after we've hit apply, we'll have the option to go in and customize the view. So we can pick and choose the columns that we want to display. We can call filters, set up pagination, that sort of thing. So there's the data. Just a word of warning, make sure you save and close before you hit the edit view. Otherwise you hit the edit view and you go and make all your changes, spend some time on that, and come back to SharePoint and your web part's not even there. So we need to make sure that we save first of all, and we'll just let that work on it for a moment. There we go. So that's saved our data, or saved the fact that we've added the web part onto the page. And now we can go through and edit the page. So we'll simply apply the changes that we want by clicking onto edit. Okay, and this should only take a moment or two. Like I said, using a virtual machine and SharePoint and doing a webinar, and that's just asking for trouble. But we always have one that we prepared earlier, should this fail. Okay, it's there. So that's re-entered the edit mode. So we can hit the drop down on the web part, and once we've done that, we can choose Edit View, and that will allow us to go through, like I say, pick and choose the columns that we want to display, and build our view that way. So first of all, we choose the Edit Web part. The Edit View comes alive here. There's your warning to hit the Save icon, and in here we can pick and choose the columns. So let's just get rid of that URL that was being displayed. We can cut this right back. Set up the filters, like I said, set up the pagination and so on, and choose OK. So once we've done that, we've got some a subset of the data. Now it's also possible to go and add some other web parts. So later on I'll add a one-to-many join, so you'll be able to see how to do that. But what I'm going to do first of all is add something called the business data item web part. So we'll add that onto the page as well. And basically I'm going to get that to point at exactly the same external content type. So we'll aim it at the suppliers again. Okay, and here it's asking me for an item. It wants to know a specific item to go and get, and I could go and choose an item, and it will display it. But instead of hard coding that, what we're going to do is just simply apply without setting the item that we want to display, and then we're going to join this web part. So we can hit the drop down, go to connections, and tell it to get the item from the suppliers list. So once those two web parts are joined, we start to get a dashboard coming into place. So we've got some summary data displayed over here. If we click onto the link on the left-hand side, that fires the connection off to the business data item web part where we can see all of our columns. Okay, so these web parts work well. They can also be styled, albeit that you're using XSLT in order to style it. Okay, we saw the custom action as well, so that can be any URL. You can set these up in Central Admin or in BCS metaman. So you can create the URL and pass a column to it. So when I clicked onto Google, it passed across the company name and so on. So those actions show in the drop-down menu. We also have the external data column. So again, another out-of-the-box feature. So I'm going to go to a standard SharePoint document library. And in the same way that we can create custom columns as metadata via a content type or just as a site column inside the document library, maybe we're creating something like a customer proposal that's going to be stored inside the document. Instead of having our users type in the company name that the proposal is intended for, what we can do is provide a lookup to the external data source via the external data column. So I don't have any columns apart from the standard ones so far inside my document library. So what I'm going to do is just go to the library ribbon here, and we're going to go through and create a column. And we'll call the column supplier. I'll even spell it correctly. And we'll choose the external data type. So rather than a single line of text or a multiple line of text, leaving room for inconsistent data, we're going to provide a lookup to the external data source. So here again, we're going to choose the supplier's external content type. We'll select the column that we want to display or store as the metadata, so that's going to be the company name, and we're also going to select some other fields that we want to display. So we've got the contact name, the contact title. Let's go for city, address, and phone number as well. There we go. So when we choose OK, these become columns inside my document library. And now if we were to create a new document or upload a document, we can do either of those. We'll have the ability to set that metadata. So we'll just simply go and upload something. Let's just upload a PowerPoint presentation here, pretending that it's a proposal for one of our customers. So when I upload it, I'm now being prompted for the supplier. So we can hit the lookup, and that will provide a lookup to the external data source. We could choose somebody like Pavlova Limited, click onto OK, save the document, and here we are with all the metadata set. So now we can start building some views on that. We could have a view per supplier, or better still, we could add the document library onto the page where we've got the BDC web part and provide a link to the document library. So now we could simply choose Pavlova Limited and see all the documents associated with Pavlova Limited and so on. So again, some very powerful scenarios can be created using that. So we've also got some Office integration, and we could bring that data into Outlook, we can bring the data into Excel, so on and so forth. One of the things we can also do via that external data column is actually provide a lookup directly from Word. So if we go to the Files tab and create a new document, so Word is going to launch. And this is obviously using Word 2013, but you have exactly the same functionality in Office 2010 as well. Okay. So that's just about to launch, and I'll do some wiggling of my mouse, which of course is going to speed Word up. And there we go. That worked a treat. And this is now showing that information from the document library into the document information panel. So once the data is set, it's going to write back via that. But what we can do is start creating a document that looks up from the external data source as well. So there's these things called quick parts. So we can go through and insert a quick part here, and go to document property, and in the list is the supplier. So we can drop the supplier onto the page there. We could also go through and insert the customer address and so on. maybe the city, county, etc., etc., we can type a letter and maybe save this as a template even, and this will basically provide us with the same lookup that we've got, unless an error occurs. This would provide us with the same lookup to the external data via Word that we have inside SharePoint as well. So the metadata could be set via that. So obviously Word's having a problem communicating. We'll just leave that open. It might be just requiring a bit more time there to finish initializing. So that's some of the stuff that we get out of the box. We've also got the search as well. So here we can simply go and search on some data. So there's a search I did earlier on. This is returning not just documents that live inside document libraries, but it's also returning data coming from external data sources as well. So, so via SharePoint Central Admin, let's just bring that up for a moment. So under the search service in SharePoint Central Admin, you'll be able to configure the search to index your external data as well. So so simply we just go to the farm search administration. Okay, so that's just going to load up the different content sources that we have. So here under the search service application, we've created some content sources, not just for SharePoint content. You can create them for things like managed paths and public folders, that sort of thing as well. So what we're going to be pointing it to is the external data sources. So here we just simply go to content source, and you can see that it's indexing my data from SAP, from the Northwind database and SQL, also from an Oracle database and so on. So when we click onto new content source, we can specify the type, and one of those is this line of business data, which is essentially business connectivity services, and we choose the external content type that we want to go ahead and index, and we specify when we want that crawl to occur. Okay, so that's some of what we get with BCS. The service application we'll have a look at in a moment. That's where the business data connectivity service application is where we're going to import the BDC model into. From there, we can go and set permissions for the data. We can create these things called profile pages and so on, and also create custom actions. So creating the external content type, as I mentioned, there's three different tools that would allow you to do that. We have the SharePoint Designer. If you've used SharePoint Designer before, you'll notice that you can go through and create an external content type. So you go to add a connection, and you can connect to three different data sources. You have Microsoft SQL, you have a .NET Assembly, or you have a WCF service. The .NET Assembly and the WCF service will need to be created in code in order to get that data back. So essentially, it's really just Microsoft SQL that you can connect to using SharePoint Designer. With it, you can add a connection, specify the connection string and so on, and that will return the tables, views, and stored procedures, and you can start building your different methods. So you'll notice in the right-hand side we've got a create method, a read item, an update, a delete, and a read list. So there's two required methods that you would need for external list to work, and that's the read list and the read item, otherwise known as finder and specific finder. The create, update, and delete would allow you to write back to the data source, and that would be optional. So the finder is otherwise known as read list. That will return all of the data, all of the columns, all the rows. That's the one. If you think of the finder, whenever we go to a view, so here if we looking at this list of columns and rows here, that's the finder method being called. We have the specific finder that gets called when we select an item. So if I select this item here, that is calling the specific finder, which is firing the connection across. And we've also got the creator, updater, and deleter, which are used in the external list, allowing us to, like I say, create new items, update items, or delete items via the external list itself. We also build an ID enumerator, and that allows you to index the data for the search to work. Okay, so Visual Studio can also be used. So you can use Visual Studio to connect to OData, and that's a great way of connecting to external data sources that might be on premise. And if you wanted to expose data via maybe a SQL Server or an Oracle database that are stored on premise on a server to SharePoint in the cloud, then OData would provide you with one way of achieving that. You don't have to write code to create the external content type to call OData, but of course you need to create the service in the first place. And again, Visual Studio could be used for that as well. When you do use Visual Studio in the OData, that allows you to deploy the external content type as an app, and all you get then is the external list. You don't get all of the other things that you've seen. So just bear that in mind. Whereas with metaman, you can use BCS metaman to also connect to OData, and that would also allow you to configure the web parts and use it in the external data column lookup and so on as well. So let's have a look at how to create the connection. So what we're going to do is fire up metaman, which we have here. BCS metaman is a Windows application. You can install it on any SharePoint environment. So if it's running in a development server, it doesn't matter. You can create everything you need in your development environment and then port that across to production and so on. Down the left-hand side here, we've got some of the data sources that we can connect to. So notice at the very top there we have Microsoft Dynamics online. So if you do use Dynamics, then you can connect to that. We have OData as well, so you can provide a URL to an OData source. We also have ODBC, so via ODBC you can connect to most things. There's a list of several different data sources there. Notice it builds the connection string, but basically if you've got the ODBC driver installed and you can create the connection string, you can connect to any ODBC data source via business connectivity services. So that would include DBase or Microsoft Access and so on. We can connect directly to Oracle, we can connect to Salesforce, we can connect to SQL, and we can also connect to a WCF service as well. So what we'll do here is we'll have a look at SQL, and then if we have time, we'll also go and have a look at some other data sources as well, or perhaps we can do that on a Q&A basis at the end of the webinar. So in here we provide the server name, we provide the type of authentication. So you can use mixed mode with your SQL database and pass through a username and password, or you can use Windows authentication, or you can use Secure Store. Secure Store is often preferred because it means you don't get double hop issues. You can successfully authenticate based on each user. And so here we could set that. What I'm going to do is, since I'm using Kerberos, I'll just connect directly anyway to my SQL server, and I won't have the double hop issue anyway. We also have the drop down of databases. So here's the Northwind database that we're going to connect to, and once we're ready, we just hit the connect, and that provides me with the tables, the views, and the stored procedures coming from that database. So all we need to do is drag and drop the tables that we want to connect to. So here I'll simply drag the customers table onto the design surface. That provides me with the two required methods. So there's the finder and the specific finder. If I want to search the data via the search site, I need the ID enumerator. If I want to be able to write back, I need the creator, the updater, and the deleter methods. So I can basically go through and select them. Notice it also selects my primary key. I could change that if it got it incorrect. It doesn't usually, so that's the correct one for the primary key. And then we hit create, and that will create the entity on the design surface there. We can preview the data to make sure that we've got the right data being returned. So it shows the first 10 rows of the table. We can then right click, configure the entity, and go and set some of the properties if we want. So things like the title column saves the user from doing that. If we imported this data into Outlook, we can bring it through as contacts. So that would allow me to map all the columns together and so on for Outlook. Under methods, these are the methods we created. And I just want to point out that you can add more methods if you want. So here we could go through and add another finder method, give it a name, and this could be US customers. Okay, so we'll save that. So now we have another finder method, and that will automatically generate a new view for me inside any external list. So all we have to do is add a filter for that method. So what we'll do is we'll add a filter called country. We'll set it on the country column, and we'll have it default to USA. Okay, so we can just simply save that method there. Another thing that we should also do is create a filter for the limit, so a limit filter here. So we can call that whatever we want. I'll just call it limit. We can set that on something like the customer ID column and specify the number of rows that we want to return. Now, that is on a per view basis. And remember, every finder method we get is another view inside the external list. There is a myth that the external list can only handle 2,000 rows. That's not true. Each view defaults to 2,000 rows, so you should set a limit filter of 2,000. You can increase your threshold to 5,000, and that's just for SQL. If you're connecting to any other data source, then it's done on the volume of data, not the actual number of rows. But you can create as many finder methods as you like, each one having 5,000 rows in it as a guide. So that's the methods created. So we could update that. And once we hit the update, just let that think about that for a moment. I think my VM is starting to slow a little. Okay, so anyway, that updated. So all the methods that we created are in there. Now what we're going to do is also add a join to orders. So I'm basically going to select orders here, drag that onto the design surface as well. So we'll be able to build a join, and you can create as many joins as you like. I'll just go through and create that. We won't go through and create the method since we've already seen that, but just bear in mind that when we do deploy this to SharePoint, it is going to have a little grumble. It's just going to give me a warning that I didn't create the limit filter. But that's okay, since we don't have more than the 2,000 rows anyway. So then we can drag and drop between the two external content types to build the association. So here I can set the customer ID primary key to the customer ID foreign key, hit create, and that builds the join for me. The next thing we would do is go up to the settings. So it's via here that we can set the model name that we want, the system name, the system instance name, where we want to deploy it to, and if we're happy, we hit deploy. So we'll deploy that now, and that's going to go ahead and deploy that across to SharePoint. Okay, and like I say, it's going to throw up a warning. It's not an error, it's just a warning about me not having the limit filter set on all of my finder methods, but that's okay. And once it deploys, we're good to start building. And just whilst we are waiting for that, I'll just point out that also in central administration, you can go and have a look at your service applications, and under the business data connectivity service application, this is where the model actually gets deployed to. So it's deployed at farm level. So in a moment we should see the one that we just created appear in here. But from here you can go through and set permissions on the external content types as well. So if you wanted to set only a subset of users with the ability to execute the data, that you could do that via central admin. So let's just refresh this. Hopefully in a moment we'll see that it's been deployed. We'll jump back to metaman. Yep, so it has deployed successfully with the two warnings. So in here we'll have a model that we created just a moment ago. Okay, we're ready to go in and use it. So let's just jump back to SharePoint. And what we'll do is edit the page again. And let's build, we'll destroy these web parts and let's go through and build the associations between the two, and then we'll start having a look at the other two web parts here. So we'll add again the business data list web part. And over on the right, we'll add the business data related list web part. We can open up the tool pane again, set the type. So in here we should now see customers and orders at the top there. These are the ones that we just created. So there's customers, we'll add that. And there's our customer information, and we'll also open up the tool pane on the related list web part and set that to orders, which contains the association. So we'll apply that as well. Once we've built that join, we can hit the drop down and connect the two web parts together. So now that we've done that, let's save and close. So here you'll notice that we can select a customer and see the related data for that customer over on the right hand side there as well. And you could keep on going. You could connect the orders to the order details and things like that as well if you wanted to. Okay. So what this isn't great at providing us is the ability to really customize the view. So no longer in SharePoint Designer do you have the design view, so it's difficult to do styling. So what you can do if you wanted to style this data is go to the XSL editor. And I don't know too many people that are really a fan of the XSL, but if you are, then great, you can go through and style it via that. So what we're going to do instead is have a look at the data viewer to display this data. So let's again just delete these web parts off of the page, just so we've got a bit more room. And we'll insert the Lightning Tools data viewer web part. So here we're going to go and grab it from Lightning Tools web parts. We'll select the data viewer, add that onto the page here, and we'll hit the drop down and go down to configure web part. So once we're configuring it, we can choose the provider. So we've got the external data source provider, but if we wanted to also connect to a SharePoint list or to XML or OData or something like that directly, we can do that as well. So I'm going to connect via BCS. We'll go to the data source tab, and this will allow me to pick and choose the external content type that I want to connect to. And again, here's the customers and the orders at the bottom there that we just created. So there's customers. We've got the finder method, the creator, the updater, deleter, and so on that we can go through and set. Under the columns tab, these are the columns that we made available. So we could select them all, drag and drop them into the order that we want them to be appearing in. So let's at least get the address information together there. We can set sorting, we can create calculated column, we can filter, and so on. And if we go to the display tab, we can start to style our data a little bit better. So this is all string data. If we had numerical data, we'd be able to set the data format for that. What I'm going to do here is just go through and do some conditional formatting on the country, so we can apply some formatting to the entire row. Let's choose something as tasteful as we can get it, and we'll set the country equal to USA. So we can keep on adding multiple levels of formatting if we want to, but yeah, let's just hit save at that point, and we'll see the data that we get back. We can also group by data as well. We'll jump back in and do that in just a moment. We can set the pagination options, so I could limit that to 50 rows at a time. We can also do the insert, update, and delete, and so on. So when we hit save, we get a view here, and not seeing any USA on the first page there. Oh, there we go. There's some USA towards the bottom, so all of that is highlighted. Okay, If we wanted to do some grouping, again, you don't have to use XSLT for that. We can just simply go back, configure the web part, under the columns tab. Let's under the display tab, let's do some grouping here. So we'll simply group by the country, hit save, and it's as simple as that. We've now got the grouping going on in the web part as well. So we'll just save and close it, and we can expand and collapse these different groups of our data. Okay, so that's the data viewer. What we'll also take a quick look at is the chart. So the chart web part, very easy to build. So we can go and grab the chart web part in the same way that we did the data viewer. You don't have to learn any complicated BI solutions or anything. This is something that an end user can build. So they simply add the chart web part onto the page, hit the drop down, choose edit the chart. Okay, and in here we've again got a choice of data sources that we can connect to. So we could connect directly to SQL or SharePoint list. We can go and connect to a web part that is already on the page, like the data viewer, or we can also connect via business data connectivity services as well. So here, if we select that, choose connect, this will provide us with a list of the different external systems. So in there, we will have the customers somewhere. Sorry, let's just choose Northwind, and sorry, let me just is this one here, BCS Webinar 1. So once I've connected to that, there's the customers and orders that we built. So I'm going to choose, in fact, let's choose orders. So we'll view the data first. Again, make sure that we're getting the right data back. So we've got the customer ID, the employee ID, the order date, and so on. What I might want to see is a chart showing me how many orders were placed in each quarter and maybe each month and so on. So what we could do is select the order ID, maybe also go through and select the order date. So we'll apply that. And when we choose next, we could filter the data if we want to. This is showing the data that we're going to be returning. We can group the data as well, which is something I will do. I'll group the data by the order date, and we're going to group it by quarter. And towards the bottom there, we're going to then do a count on the order IDs. So we can apply that, and that will be enough to go through and start to build our chart. And this is the actual chart that we'll get. It's not just a picture of a chart. It's what our chart's going to actually look like. We can show top 10 rows or something like that if we want, or top 5%, whatever we want to do there. And then we've got the chart type. So you can choose from 2D, 3D, single series charts. You've got pie charts and so on and so forth. So we're going to go with, let's go with a 3D column chart. Or, sorry, I just changed my mind. I don't know why. I'll go with a 2D bar chart. So let's choose next. We can set some captions. So here we'll have the number of orders, and we'll put per quarter. Okay, we could set the X and Y axis and so on. We can customize the format of the data. So how do we want to format this? We have drop downs for the order date and so on. There's some cosmetics. If we want to style it, we can set the different background colors. We can have background images with opaqueness set and so on. Add trend lines, change our number formatting and so on. What I'm going to do here is just do a drill down. So we're going to drill down into the chart. So we're showing it per quarter, but then I want to show it per month. And we'll set the configuration to format that per month. And then we'll also go down to each day as well. So we'll again customize the label to say per day. So once we're happy with that, we again hit apply. We can also allow users to filter. So if they want to filter by country, then they could do. And we could allow the user to also export the data as well. So print it, export it to Excel, export it to a PDF, and so on. So once we're ready, we just hit finish, and there's our chart added to the page. So we'll just save and close that. So there's the chart. Notice it's showing the number of orders per quarter, but we can drill down. If we click onto one of those bars, now we've got the orders per month. And if we click into the one of the months, we've got the orders per day, and so on. So a great way to provide your users with a dynamic way of drilling down into the data and being able to see situations like that. Okay, so there's lots of different types of charts that you can create. There's line charts, there's bar charts, as you've seen. There's surface charts. You can also create 3D pie charts and so on as well. Hopefully that gives you an idea of how you could use that, the data viewer and BCS metaman, to just provide a little bit extra when you're using business connectivity services. So yeah, we looked at the data viewer, we looked at the charts. You could also, if you wanted to, connect to do a similar thing in Office 365, and lots of different things that you can connect to in there. But for now, we'll wrap that up. Let's just provide you with the contact details. If you do want to contact me with any questions after the webinar, there's my email address, brett@lightningtools.com. I'm also on Twitter with @BrettLonsdale, so feel free to do that. But what I will do is open up for questions now if anybody has any. If you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand using the GoToWebinar software. Just simply hit the raise hand symbol, and if I see a raised hand, I'll unmute you, and you can ask your question, and I'll be happy to answer it. Okay, so we have Michael Becker and Rajesh Pradhan. So Michael, I'm going to unmute you. Hi, Michael. Let's give you a moment. Michael, are you there? Okay, so you may have audio issues, so I'm just going to, Michael, if you do want to get in contact afterwards, brett@lightningtools.com is the email address. I'll be happy to answer any questions. So Rajesh. Hi, Rajesh.
Yeah, hi.
Hello, how you doing?
Hello?
Hi, I can hear you. Yep.
Yeah, hi. Wait, yeah, okay. So, wait, I have a table in SQL which will contain the data of my my all employees. I just want to sync all the data from the SQL table into the SharePoint user profile. So, can it be possible using BCS?
Okay, great question, and yes, it can. So there is a user profile import as well. Yeah, if you go into the user profile service, you'll notice that you can add a secondary connection, and that can point to an external content type, and it will ask you to map the columns. So obviously the SharePoint user profile might not exactly match the column name inside your employees table. So you would map them all together, first name to first name, last name to last name, and so on. And you can set how often you want to do that import based on a schedule.
Okay. Okay. My another doubt is I have tried just 2 days ago that I have to just create a BDC model, and here yeah, while you are presenting, I have seen that the methods we have read all methods and read specific finders. I just want to know what is the main difference between two methods: read all items and read specific or a single items.
Yeah, so they're the two required ones. You have to have the finder, which is your read all, and you need to have the specific finder, which is the read item. Yep. So the purpose of the read,
Okay.
yeah, the
Okay.
purpose
Yeah.
of the read. Sorry, go ahead. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Thanks.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. I'll try you again, Michael. Let's just unmute you. Are you there? No, still not hearing Michael. So let's have a look. Um, Bill Saby. So I'm going to unmute you. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Brett.
Hi.
Does any of this work with SharePoint Foundation?
Great question. So does this work with SharePoint Foundations? Yes, it does. Not everything, but you get the external list. So that works out of the box, as does the external data column. You won't get the search. You won't get the BDC web parts either, but you could use the data viewer if you just wanted the web parts on the page. So the Lightning Tools data viewer works, the chart web part works, and of course BCS MetaMan works with SharePoint Foundations as well.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks. Okay, and Andrew Chin. Andrew, I'm going to unmute you now. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Brett. My question is, I know you were showing a lot with a focus on the external lists. If there is, let's say, a database that's in SharePoint, can we still utilize like the chart tools and the data list tools that you were showcasing to us with the data that's not external to SharePoint?
Okay, yeah, great question. So yeah, obviously, like you said, the focus on this webinar was business connectivity services. But yes, you can use the data viewer web part with multiple data sources, including SharePoint lists. So if you had a standard SharePoint list, you'd be able to connect to it. So if you wanted to style tasks or something like that, very easy to do that. And likewise with the chart, that can also build charts on SharePoint lists as well.
Oh, thank you very much, Brett.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, I don't see anybody else with their hand raised. So once again, if you do think of a question afterwards, Brett at lightningtools.com, I'll be happy to answer it. The webinar it was fast paced, and it's a lot of information to cover, but it has been recorded, and I'll be posting that up this evening on the Lightning Tools website, and I'll also send a link out to you all tomorrow, so you know where to view that as well. But at that point, thank you very much for attending. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, any questions, please let me know.